Digitalization has become certainly a game changer in public administrations, with both benefits and disadvantages, but it's certainly an issue that trade unions need to be on top of. And the first thing we are asking as European public service unions is to be able to shape digitalization. So digitalization is much more than technological changes. It means a change of work organization with intensification, not least of working time, of speedier reaction. So from obviously the introduction of emails few decades ago, now to the use of artificial intelligence. And one thing which has been missing to establish public services online is indeed to recognize that there is a role for trade unions and for the workers and the civil servants that they represent to have a say on how digitalization is designed and implemented. It all depends on how digitalization is being introduced and designed. Obviously, if for a driving license, for a passport, to be able to do it online, to request a birth certificate. I think most citizens are happy that those procedures can be done online. Yeah. Now, when it comes to citizens in a vulnerable situation or who rely on social benefits, for instance, or for migrant workers or asylum seekers, we need to have to register to have a work permit or indeed refugee status. What we have seen is that the availability and the quality of public administration online can be potentially undermined because the forms will be complex, because the right to appeal when a negative decision is being taken, rejection of, for instance, asylum claim, it makes it often more difficult to appeal. But even in some cases, we have seen there has been a number of scandals in the Netherlands, in France, whereby asylum seekers or citizens on social benefits could not access their rights not because it was online, but because the digitalization has been used as a pretext to make it much more difficult to access the administration. And this is something, obviously, which we are strongly against. Regarding what we can do is to make sure that public administrations remain both online and offline, so in person. There should be a right for every single citizen to access, to have a contact person in the administration who is able to deal with our claims, with our file, and that's very important to have to keep a human touch, basically, in the public administrations. Now, regarding working conditions, well, as I mentioned, the pace, the intensification of working time is certainly an issue. Obviously, the potential now of digitalization, as we have seen during the pandemic, is that for many of us, many cannot do telework, but many of us were forced into telework as part of the responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it has been obviously a lifesaver to be able to continue working. However, there are also limitations that need to be provided to keep social cohesion at work, to keep teamwork, for trade unions to be able to continue doing trade union work, which can be made more difficult in a telework context. Trade unions have to enjoy the right of collective bargaining on digitalization. So from the introduction of software regarding the protection of workers' data at the workplace, it's a pitfall indeed, which is quite important, where our workers' data or citizens' data, where are they filed? Are they filed, for how long, for which purpose? The whole chapter on protection of personal data is extremely important. So trade unions and the workers they represent need to have a say on how it's done. It's a very basic principle, starting point, and it's part of the trade union work. And what's important is to draw lessons from mistakes, because digitalization, to be well implemented with all the safeguards in terms indeed of protection of personal data, protection of trade union rights, protection of health and safety. This has to be, all those safeguards have to be in place, and we need to draw lessons from past mistakes, as I was saying. So a good digitalization requires sufficient human and material resources. Governments, public authorities should not think that digitalization is a means to cut down on the workforce. It will certainly change jobs, the content of jobs, the way we work, but it certainly doesn't mean that you will need fewer staff. And that's a big pitfall that unfortunately many public authorities are thinking of thinking that digitalization will allow savings. It's not the case. Digitalization should be a tool to improve the content of job and to improve the quality and the availability of public services. But there is always a degree of complexity, in all the work of public administrations, which cannot be left to digital means. And then there is also the EU, I think, can make a difference between the model of the state surveillance in China, like in China, through digitalization with, what is a good social citizen with social ranking, social marking, lots of video surveillance, etc., or market surveillance, which to caricature would be more the US sort of model, which in our view obviously is not a model. But obviously the digital market is right now in the hands of private US-led companies. And there is this whole context that the EU has to find a way in between. And what we're also calling for is to recognize that we need a public cloud, we need a safe public cloud, and we shouldn't let the state, the administration, the EU administration for that matter, being run by Amazon or Apple, Microsoft, etc. It's like we've given so much power to those US multinational companies, and including now obviously ChatGPT, which is again in the hands of US companies, and we need to regain control of that. And we think that as part of the fundamental human rights, we should have a right to public internet.